Welcome first-time listeners and returners to the Sports Deli, where we believe that less is more. If you are a returner and you have already heard the intro, please feel free to fast forward to the 4-minute and 35-second mark of the podcast. LESS stands for leadership, equality, empowerment, empathy, education, social injustice, suicide prevention, sports, and solutions. We talk a lot about white privilege. We want to mobilize and pay it forward. The Sports Deli is sponsored by SportRx. You can give them a call at 888-831-5817 or find them online at sportrx.com. SportRx is the leader in sport prescription eyewear. They are used by the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, and Major League Baseball players. People all over the world use SportRx. You can give them a buzz again at 888-831-5817 or find them online at sportrx.com. Don't forget to enter the code DELI10 at checkout for your special 10% discount. And now a little bit about your two co-hosts, Dr. J and myself, Hootie Hoot. Dr. J hails to us from Maryland. He lives in New York. He went to Bethesda Chevy Chase High School in Maryland. He's a sports junkie. He loves his Washington football teams. He used to brag in college when we were roommates about how the Washington football team used to have a 41-year waiting list. They don't anymore. He loves politics. His dad was a civil rights lawyer. His mom worked for the government. He's working on his EDD in higher education. He's got his master's degree from the University of South Carolina. He once won third place as a freshman at the University of Kentucky in a Rick Pitino lookalike contest. He's been photographed with Dick Vitale, Jimmy V, Rick Pitino, the Tark, and Coach Spurrier. He loves golf. He's played in Scotland, Mexico, Spain, the United States, and he's played Torrey Pines, the Ocean Course, Pebble Beach, and Doral. He loves the All-American at Waffle House and will, once the pandemic is over, commandeer a booth at night at Waffle House and be broadcasting live right here in the Sports Deli. As for myself, Hootie Hoot, I'm from Detroit. I went to Oak Park High School. I love my Detroit teams. Loved my friends growing up on Leslie. I played 5 sports in high school. I got cut 3 times, once in middle school, high school, and in college, and the next year I made the team every single time because I was motivated and so mad that I got cut the previous year. I played JV on the basketball and baseball teams as a junior, but I didn't care because I just wanted to play, and then the next year as a senior, I made the varsity in both baseball and basketball. I give a lot of thanks and big credit and kudos to my youth coaches, Coach Clairfelt, Mr. Emanuel, Richard Maltz, Jeff Feig, Mr. Sternberg, Coach Golding. All played huge parts in my upbringing and my success, and I played 4 years of college basketball and 1 year of intercollegiate tennis. I played on the first team in the history of Goucher College in the sport of basketball. I was the first MVP in the history of the men's basketball program. I still hold a record where I made 5 out of 6 three-pointers in a game, good for 83%, a single game high, still some 30-plus years later. I went to Frostburg State and learned under the tutelage and mentorship of Oscar Lewis, a phenomenal coach. I've coached men's and women's college basketball for 23 years. I've sent dozens of players to the NCAA and NAIA levels, including 11 to the Division I level. I currently coach at the Preuss School in San Diego. It's a low-income first-generation high school in the sport of girls basketball. I have a beautiful, amazing, incredible daughter. I'm a life coach. My mom has been an inspiration to me and a huge support system during all my ups and downs in my life. Unlike John, I will not be commandeering a booth at the Waffle House once the pandemic is over, but at my favorite restaurant, the Crab Hut, right here in San Diego. And now, back to the Sports Deli. On this 15th day of Black History Month 2021, we welcome Maya Reddy. Maya is a queer South Asian former professional golfer, LGBTQ plus pansexual and non-binary athlete activist who grew up in Northern California and attended D3 Claremont McKenna College, where she was a dual major in government and film studies, and wrote her senior thesis on the effect of queer representation in media on public policy. She was a 3-time All-American in golf. Last year, she played 100 holes in one day for PGA Reach Philadelphia, which focuses on junior golf and diversity and inclusion initiatives. She hosts a podcast exploring the queer Asian experience, hosts workshops on undergraduate campuses, which she'll talk about later, produces panels on queer Asian representation for conventions and film festivals, and helped found San Diego Pride's Queer Asian Pacific Islander Middle Eastern Desi American Coalition. President Joe Biden issued an executive order that will extend existing federal non-discrimination protections, and she will talk about a law that was being proposed with regards to this topic. She's a law student in the class of 2022 at the University of Pennsylvania. She's a law clerk, NCLR, at the National Center for Lesbian Rights. She works tirelessly to advocate and consult on inclusivity initiatives in golf and athletics at large. And in 2020, you said you never thought I'd be celebrating Pride in Golf Digest, talking about the LGBTQ plus inclusion in the sport alongside friends and other wonderful queer golfers after having spent so many years hurt, angry, and frustrated with golf. Honestly, I never thought I would see the moment where the most influential media outlet for our sport would run an article on how we foster LGBTQ plus inclusion. You can find her on Twitter at Maya Reddy. Reddy's with 2 D's, and on Instagram at Maya S. Reddy. Maya, we're honored to have you. Welcome to the Sports Deli.
Hey, it's good to be here. And also now I'm just going to be thinking about sandwiches because I love delis and
That's
I'm never
right.
not hungry.
Yeah, you definitely got to be hungry all the time with the amount of work you're putting in law
Oh
school.
my
Sure.
God. I guess that's
Craziness.
true. That is true.
So has it sort of flown by this year, first year and a half? Wait, have you been online also, just like everybody else?
Yeah, I'm losing my
Wow.
mind. I
Oh
am
God, that's awful.
losing my mind. It is so weird. And I mean, like, it's weird doing grad school in this, but I can't imagine like the folks doing high school or even just starting college
Oh,
online. And it's just
crazy.
like, holy hell. But yeah,
Well,
it's been
especially
a
because,
journey.
yeah, but especially because, you're doing something that you want to be doing. Like, I can understand it for classes that maybe, they're just general ed courses, but like you really want to, use this, platform for the rest of your life. So you want to be face to face and seeing people's body languages and presenting arguments and seeing your professor's passion and what your classmates have to say. And they're small classes, right? They're probably really small
Yeah.
classes.
Yeah, no, it's so weird when you're just like, because on Zoom
Oh.
it's like gallery mode or speaker mode,
We all know, yes.
right? And so I have a class Monday through Wednesday that's like one of my larger classes.
Yeah.
And I just kind of remember sitting there this morning being like, oh, I want to see everybody's reactions, but I can only fit a certain amount of people on the screen at the same time.
Oh my
And
God.
then you get like that whole weird like out of body experience where you're looking at yourself and you're like, wait, is that what I look like when I'm thinking?
No
So
kidding. Oh God, that's funny. So you obviously you're very confident now. You're in a good place. You're comfortable in your own skin, but it wasn't always like that, right? So let's,
yeah.
let's let's go back to your earliest memory of um, not knowing who you were.
I was talking to my partner about this. We were reminiscing on like our younger days because we had just watched Titanic again.
Oh my
And we're like,
God.
oh my God, baby Leonardo DiCaprio, like, how could you not be in love with him?
Right?
So we were like reminiscing on kind of like that period, like kind of adolescence and when everything feels so intense and
Yeah.
so like just it's life or death, everything is. And
Totally.
I don't know. I every time I was thinking about that and she was telling me about her experience kind of that felt in comparison to me more of that quintessential kind of high school American experience. Whereas for me, like every time I tried to tap into those memories, I was like, oh, like I was just playing golf all the time. Like I didn't necessarily have like a social life in the ways that I
Mhm.
probably wanted to.
Yeah.
I, you know, didn't have that many friends. I don't know. It's like I don't think I would change that. It's like, yeah, I kind of regret missing out on like these formative experiences of like exploring who I am, like
Yeah.
having my first kiss, like all of those things.
Right.
But or going to a party. Like I don't think I went to a party. But
Wow.
yeah, and so I remember thinking about that and it's like, yeah, sure, like I kind of miss that. But then at the same time, there was this kind of it's like golf helped me figure out who I was and who I am. And like it it was this so like this town I grew up in, Redding, California, also
Mhm.
Megan Rapinoe's hometown.
Yeah.
She has like this great description of it in her book. But it's predominantly white and it's pretty rural, gorgeous, and the people
Mhm.
are like absolutely wonderful. But
Mhm.
politically, it leans like a little bit more conservative.
Yeah.
And so, like, as an Indian kid, like a brown family in a city where there weren't that many other brown kids, and, like me, I was definitely very queer when I was growing up. I looked like a tomboy, had a bowl cut because 'cause I'm Asian, of course.
Oh my
Um,
god.
wore cargo shorts all the time,
Wow.
was just playing a shit ton of sports.
Yeah.
And so definitely stood out, but because I was playing sports and because I was so good at golf, like, it was a shield. I was still really uncomfortable with, like, I didn't know how to be proud of myself yet because I felt
Mm.
so out of place and so, like, had no idea where I belonged outside of like, not even in my family. It's like parents are immigrants, so, like, my Americanization, right? Like, it was they're just felt at odds a lot of the
Yeah, well,
time.
not only where you're living, but, you're probably having monologues with yourself in your own head, right? Back and
Yeah,
forth about, "Okay, I have to be this way or should be this way, but then, that's not how I feel," and then,
yeah,
you're in the sports world, and so you're probably feeling pretty conflicted, and I wanna ask you, you identify as queer.
yes,
Okay, so explain to people what that is because some people listening may not understand. Because I can tell you back in the
yeah,
day, if someone said that word, that did not have a positive connotation back.
yeah, yeah, no, it's interesting because, like, I don't know, there's a lot of language change, in, like, the LGBTQ community. Like,
Yeah.
I think especially with gender identity, there's so many more ways for folks to be able to describe themselves more accurately,
Yeah.
which is, like, incredibly empowering to have those labels and to be able to be like, "Yeah, this is who I am, this fits." But
Mhm.
yeah, like, queer has had such a negative connotation for it was so well, it was, like, used, in a very sterile, negative medical way for a
Mhm.
while.
Yeah.
It was used as a slur for a while,
Right.
and, like, that's very real, and there's so many folks, and there's, like, an entire generation of, LGBTQ folks who, like, have a distinct and very understandable aversion to saying queer. And then there's, like, a new generation of LGBTQ folks, like myself, who are kind of reclaiming that word,
Mhm.
which for me, like, I can only speak for myself, of course, but for me, what I kind of love about queer and what kind of draws me to identifying as queer is the fluidity that the word allows. So, to be a complete nerd, um, queer itself, right? Like it kind of means different than the other. Like if you go back to like Shakespeare will use queer, like
Right.
in literature all over the world, right? Like not all over the world, but mostly in English literature, right?
Yep.
Like queer is used to be like, oh, that's weird or that's different. Mostly that's different. It didn't feel like a negative difference. It just felt like, oh, that's different. And the ways in which it's been reclaimed and understood, again, this is me being like a huge fucking nerd, but like
Well, it's empowering though.
yeah, it's really empowering because it's
Yeah.
kind of like difference. It's not like pigeonholing it into one thing. And I
Yeah.
think, for me, it's not only does it allow for this fluidity of, sexual orientation, because it's like like for a long time I identified as bi, but like for me, that didn't necessarily, in my understanding of it, and this is only my understanding of it, I kind of felt like I was like, oh no, I don't feel like a 50-50 split. Like I don't know how to really describe it, like, but that doesn't really fit me. and queer kind of like felt more fluid. It was like, okay, like I can be super in love with Nick Jonas and also super in love with my girlfriend. And then we both can be super in love and want to hook up with Nick Jonas because it's Nick Jonas.
Right.
um, but and then it wasn't just that, it was kind of like gender presentation too. I identify as a woman,
Mm,
and because I'm a jock, right? Like when I'm
right.
in my sports clothes, I'm not like super femme. Like I want to
Right.
dress for like the sport that I'm playing. And say what you will about the gender binary, but I was just like, like I kind of like how I can define what being a woman is for myself.
Totally.
And then, like, the third kind of piece of it that makes me really love the term queer is that, like, I'm Indian and I'm Hindu. I am not a Hindu nationalist. I completely denounce all of that. It's hot trash
Mhm,
and just fascism,
mhm.
just to say that very
Yeah.
clearly. Um, and but yeah, like I grew up Hindu. The older I've gotten, the more proud I have been of kind of like my cultural identity. But like the fact of the matter is that it is different from Western kind of religion or
Totally.
Western culture. And so in that way, it's like my culture and the way I grew up in a certain sense is inherently queer from American culture. So like saying queer, it feels like it encompasses all of these different parts of myself where I can just be like, yeah, like I'm queer. Like I don't have to like define each section. It's like I can
Yeah.
just say that I'm queer. But yeah, long-winded, nerdy answer to your
No,
question.
that's interesting. Yeah, because like I said, it had a negative connotation forever. And when I, have tried to educate myself a little bit more, in these spaces, I found that interesting that it's so accepted now versus
Yeah.
what it used to be. You are listening to an interview with Maya Reddy, a queer South Asian professional golfer, law student, and activist. And you can find her online on Twitter at Maya Reddy and on Instagram, Maya S. Reddy. You can find her at Queer Asian Social Club, where she has over 7,000 followers at Kapimeda, which is Qapimeda. And that is the San Diego Pan Asian Queer Coalition. And you can find her at Athlete Ally, just like it sounds, which works to dismantle the systems of oppression in sport that isolate, exclude, and endanger the LGBTQI plus people. And now back to the interview with the inspirational and courageous Maya Reddy. So, to talk about, because maybe there's a lot of people on here who are still in the closet, or they don't really know, what space they're supposed to be in, and they're scared, or there's not family acceptance. How was it for you when you came out?
I was really lucky. Like my parents were incredibly supportive and wonderful. So I was dating a girl, and yeah, so I was just like, I have no idea how I'm going to have this conversation with my mom because I need my mom, but I'm
Right.
also like, this is such a weird way for me to have to come out to her.
Wow.
And I remember just being like so sad and being like, I just want to talk to my mom. Like, those moments where you're like, I just need my mom or I like need my dad. And then I was like, like I haven't come out to my mom yet. Like, how am I supposed to have this
So
conversation with
wait, you were
her? I just remember being like, I just need my mom. So
aw.
I called her, and I was like, Mom, like just crying. I was like, okay, but I just have to tell you one thing first. And I was like, Mom, I'm bi, because like then I was identifying as bi.
Mm.
I was like, Mom, I'm bi. I'm
How old
dating
were
this
you?
woman. Uh, 5 years ago, so 23, I think.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
late
crazy. Oh
bloomer.
my
I'm a late
god.
bloomer.
Well, late bloomer publicly. But go ahead,
Yeah.
yeah.
'Cause all throughout high school and everything, I was one of those kids who's super politically active. I was,
Mm.
somebody who's definitely queer going like, "I'm straight, but not narrow." And it's like, "Girl, you were gay." Um, but, my I was, like, really active in that. Like, I
Mhm,
was, have always been very liberal, very social justice oriented.
mm.
And I remember telling my mom that, and my mom's first reaction was like, "I don't want you to feel like you have to be okay with everybody else and not be okay with yourself." Because she,
Oh,
like, knew how much I was, like, advocating for, like, queer rights and marriage equality, 'cause she's just been,
no,
like, wonderful.
that's cool.
My dad's a doctor, so he came over for his residency, I believe it was.
Where'd your
Mom's
dad
like,
do his residency? That's cool.
it's a really good question. He worked at Cook County in Chicago,
Wow.
which is fun because that's where ER
I was
it
gonna
takes
say,
place,
yeah.
right? And so I'm always like, "Dad, did you hang out with Juliana Margulies?" Um, he wanted to kind of, like, own his own practice and not work in, like, a big thing. So
Mhm.
he was deciding between Florida and Redding, California,
Wow.
and chose Redding, and I'm so
Oh
glad
my
that he
god.
did.
Yeah.
Weirdly,
Wow.
as a California girl, I'm like, "Why Florida?" Like, um, but yeah, and so he ended up in Redding, and, yeah, we've been there ever since, although I guess now I'm in Philadelphia, but
Let's pivot a little bit, or let's not take too big of a divot, but let's so truth be told, right? I love golf. It's so if you ask me what I prefer to coach, it's basketball. If you like what I prefer to watch, it's football, and what I prefer to play, it's golf. And so, about 20 years ago, I thought about trying to become, a professional golfer. I was playing Torrey Pines, 5 days a
oh, hell
week.
yeah.
Yeah, I was loving life. And then coaching and then having a kid obviously happened. But so you golfed a lot growing up, right? And
Yeah,
I was around a lot of people that did that kind of thing here in San Diego. I'd see them over at Tecolote all the time, practicing for hours on end. And so, how was that? Like, did you have a choice to stop, and you wanted to keep going? Why? Why?
why golf?
Well, yeah, because golf and tennis is different, right? Because
Yeah,
you have to sort of put everything else aside and make those sacrifices and do
yeah.
things at a younger age.
Yeah, well, one, I'm, like, very jealous here in San Diego because I miss San Diego so much, but yeah, I started playing when I was 3, and I'm always very proud of that because that's when Tiger
I was
started
gonna
playing.
say Tiger, yep. Yeah,
I'm like,
like
"I'm just like you, except not at all Tiger." Um, but yeah, no, I played because I started playing because I saw my dad hitting balls, and it's like I wanted to be like my dad, and I just wanted to be like the guys. Like, my cousins are huge sports guys. One of them used to work for ESPN.
Wow,
They were, like, assistant coaches for UCLA's basketball team. So I, like, idolize them. They're, like,
that's
my big
sick.
brothers. And I was like, "I just wanna be like them." So, naturally, I just played a whole bunch of sports growing up. It was
Yeah,
like golf, we played tennis, I swam,
wow,
I played soccer for, like, AYSO soccer,
wow.
I think I played basketball for a second, but then I was like,
For a
"I'm too
quick minute.
short." I was, like, too short. I tried playing base or softball, and then apparently I would just, like, sit in the outfield picking flowers because I got bored. But yeah, no, my 3 main sports were, oh, and then I also, snowboarded, like, I raced
Wow,
snowboarding, in high school,
sick.
uh, which was the best, so
That's
much
so
fun.
cool. Yeah,
Um, but yeah, so, like, golf, tennis, and swimming were kind of like my 3 big sports, and
wow.
I played them all the time, and it kind of got to that point in what it was like middle school-ish area where it was like, okay, you gotta choose a sport that you're gonna take into high school, that you're gonna just then transition into going to college.
Yeah.
And so essentially what happened was like I had to choose between golf, tennis, and swimming. And I was actually really good at swimming. I went to Junior Olympics,
Wow.
and yeah, like I was pretty good at swimming. I wasn't having fun. Then it came down to tennis and golf, and literally the only reason why I chose golf was because I did not wanna run. And so I was like, "I'm gonna play golf." So that's how I ended up playing
That's
golf,
hilarious.
and,
Wow,
fun, as I later or very soon found out, it was one of the more frustrating decisions I could make even
wow.
though it doesn't involve running. What has always been my strength is that I hit the ball pretty far, and so I loved doing that because I was like, haha, I can play with the boys. Like I really loved that chase of perfection and how it's
Yeah.
always just out of reach. I started, like kind of really seriously sticking with it in middle school, was playing kind of all of the junior tours in Northern California. So like back and forth to Sacramento Bay Area, like almost every weekend. But I was still kind of mediocre.
Mm,
Um, because I didn't really love the sport. I was just,
mm,
like, playing it because it was a part of my identity, but I don't know if I could say that I really loved it
mm.
until I got to college, and I just had, like, a really incredible team, that, really put the love of the game and that camaraderie first, and that helped me fall in love with the sport, and then I just, like, got good, and I was like, "Oh, wow. If you play the game because you love it and you're having fun, then you're actually really good at it."
Did you
So
have any
yeah.
D1 offers?
N I didn't apply to any D1 schools
Oh,
because I wanted to go me being a nerd, I was, like, really concerned with, like, the education, and I was like, "Yeah, like, it's really dope to play D1, and I don't think I'm ready to put that much of a commitment in the sport while I'm in college," or I wasn't
yeah.
in a place to make that commitment.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's
Um,
cool. Well, John's usually with us, but he had a commitment tonight. And we always talk about this on the show because he and I both went D3. I had a chance to walk on. I just told Doug Gottlieb this last hour when he was on that I had a chance to walk on a Fairleigh Dickinson, but I wanted to go D3 because I didn't really know that that small atmosphere was gonna be so nurturing and so soothing
yeah,
to my spirit and, just speaking for myself, and I, like even though I didn't like my basketball coach, he was just a huge jerk, but I loved just every other aspect of D3, the camaraderie,
yeah,
the small classroom sizes, so that's cool that you found your your sort of golf, passion and voice there, and so
yeah,
what happened after that? Do you have so at this point, do you have to go on mini tours? Do you have to go to Q school? Like, I'm so intrigued by
yeah,
this part because you hear it on the men's side all the time, but you don't really hear women talking about Q school or the mini tours and things like that and where that
yeah.
led you. You're listening to an interview with Maya Reddy, professional golfer and current law student at the University of Pennsylvania. She plans to return to the LPGA professional tour once she is done with law school. She was a 3-time All-American at Claremont McKenna College in the Los Angeles area. And now back to this incredible interview with Maya Reddy right here in the Sports Deli with Hootie Hoot.
Yeah, so basically, I fell in love with the sport through college. I got really good, was like All-American 3 years in a row, and I was like, "Wait, this is awesome. I wanna do more of this all the time. I feel great."
What did your
And so I
coach
ca
help you with the most there?
so I had 2 coaches.
Okay,
One was really wonderful. She kind of, like, started us out and was like she would say she played on the Korean, LPGA,
cool.
and so she's a really good golfer, and she would always say this analogy, it's like, a chopstick can't stand by itself, like, it always has to stand together with another like that
Right?
balance, it
Yep.
stands together,
Interesting.
and so she was like, "You have to be that as a team, like, even if this is a solo sport, it's like
Uh-huh.
when you have your team together," and I was like, "Yeah, yeah, because like,
Totally.
that makes a huge difference."
Does.
And then my second coach was, very, very abusive, and
Wow.
was, like, mentally and emotionally abusive for the last to me, for the last year, which I've been in a lot of therapy working through that and the PTSD from that, but,
I'm so sorry. That's all like a D3, like you would not even think, especially in a
yeah,
non-mainstream sport like golf, right?
yeah.
Like, wow, that's awful.
But I guess, it's just it's I've played with a lot of other, athletes who've had similar experiences even at small schools, and it's like the obsession with winning, right, kind of trumps everything, no matter what level of the sport you are. But yeah, so that was really hard, and I graduated, I started working in the film industry because that's what I had thought I wanted to do, and then a few months into that, I was like, "Wait a second, I miss playing golf?" And I was like, "I wanna go play pro." Like, I was practicing, I was living in LA, so I'd practice a bunch, and I was like, "I miss this." like, I miss playing, like, I wanna play, like, I feel like I've given up on what I could be, and I don't wanna regret not chasing my dream. So, I talked to my swing coach, who had been my swing coach for, like, 10 years, and I was like, "Is this a stupid idea, or do you think I could do it?" And he was like, "I think you can do it, it's just gonna take a lot of hard work," and I was like, "Okay, I'm down, let's do this." So I moved to San Diego, and which was the best, I love San Diego. And I started playing on the mini tours, and at that time,
Now, do you have
like,
sponsors? You have to pay your own way? Like,
you
how
have
does
to
this
pay
work?
your so that's, like, the hard thing,
Ooh,
with, like, women's sports, right? Like, there aren't as many opportunities for sponsorships,
mm,
and the ones that are out there are very few and far between and really competitive. Though in golf, and this definitely may have changed since I played, but, like, when I was playing, the Instagram influencer kind of culture, in women's golf was really big, and it was really hard because I would see so many athletes getting rewarded in the sense that they were getting sponsorships, they were getting exemptions, um, not only because of their talent, but it did seem a lot to do with, like, their Instagram followings. Eh
self-promotion. Yeah,
yeah, and it's like, that's great, like,
yeah.
they're still great athletes,
Mhm.
and it also kind of it made it seem like in order to succeed, you had to fit this, like, specific image, of, like, the Instagram golfer influencer, and I
Mm.
was just like, "That's not who I am," and it was a little bit demoralizing because 'cause you're just like, well, if that's what it why can't I just be good at the thing? Like, I just wanna be good at the sport and that be
You
what
just want it
helps
to
me
be
get.
more organic. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that, like, realistically, that's not how things work,
No.
but, it was hard to see that, and it was hard to kind of, like, play with other girls who are, like, have been out there grinding for years and,
Right.
are just as good, if not better, but not getting the same exemptions, right?
Mhm.
I would never have been able to, chase my dream of playing professionally
Yeah.
if my parents weren't supportive, and that's, like, a huge privilege that, like, I do not take lightly. Went to Q school, and it's works the same way that it does with the guys. Mini tours, Q school, you get your kind of, exemptions onto the Symetra Tour or web dot is it still called the web.com for the
I
guys,
think
I
I
think?
think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you just try, like, if you're on those tours and you just, like, work your way up, or if you're really good, then you just qualify straight into the PGA or LPGA tour through stage 3 of Q school, but yeah, I went to Q school. I just I don't know, I was thinking about this a lot with the Justin Thomas, incident a few weeks ago,
I was gonna ask you about that. Yeah.
at Q school. I had this caddy who, was very proper, and I remember, like, not like, I was just, like, staying even, like, I wasn't making birdie putts, it was just, like, staying par, and I was so frustrated because I was like, "Come on, can something drop?"
Right.
And so I would keep cursing, and I like, my favorite word when I'm on the golf course is "fuck" because it just you has that punch, it feels very cathartic
Yes.
to say.
Totally.
And so I would keep saying that, like, under my breath because I was just like, "God damn." And my caddy
Mr. Proper.
yeah. So my caddy, like, berated me after the round being like, "You're a professional, you're a role model, you have to be a role model for you can't use language like that." And I was like, "Okay, like, on the one hand, I see what you're saying, and also, what?" And so I've thought about that a lot with the Justin
Mhm.
Thomas incident because it's like we're all going to we're all going to have, like, those expletives we say. The only difference is, like, whether or not you use a word that could cause direct harm to a group of people, like an actual
Right.
slur, and, like,
So tell
uh
everybody what he said. So he said
yeah.
he missed a putt, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so he missed a putt, and then he used, the other F word that is a
Right.
slur to
Yeah.
gay folks, t in reference to his ball.
Yeah.
Um, and, it's like, I would use the fuck F word in that
Right.
situation, right?
Yeah.
And I think for me and for many, LGBTQ folks and allies and, great people, not to say
Yeah.
that Justin Thomas isn't great, but, our reaction is like, why was that the word that came to mind? Why was that the first word that came to mind when it has such a long history of, you know, being used in moments of violence? It's another slur, and slurs, whether it be to a marginalized community based on their racial identity or their sexual orientation, is still like, you know, kind of that first level
Yeah.
in a hateful attack.
And he
And
might have
so
used it 10,000 times before, but he just got
yeah,
caught this time, and he didn't
yeah,
necessarily mean it in a derogatory way, but it is
yeah,
another example, like you said, of marginalizing in your own spaces, and then it
yeah,
sort of extrapolates from there, you know,
yeah.
as you go more public.
And it's like, why was it so easy? Like, that's the
Yeah.
question. It's like, why was it so easy for someone to and I think a lot, right? Like, it's not the same situation, and I'm not saying that it is. However, it is similar in the use of a slur and, like, the ease of a slur being used, but I think about that country artist Morgan Wallen, who very recently was caught on tape, I don't he was, like, drunk or something, running around, and very, very easily, to truly everybody's kind of horror, used the N-word and was caught on
Yeah,
tape.
I saw that.
And
Yeah.
so, like, I think that also there, right? Like, why was this person so comfortable with using that word?
Right.
Why was, like, kind of what does that say about the normalization of using that word in your, like, everyday language? And I
Yeah.
think that's, like, the greater conversation.
It is.
Yeah, because it's like, it shouldn't be that easy. Like, what does that say about, like, how people are interpreting it as, like, an okay word to say? When
Yeah.
it's not, like, it's been used for so many years, and even to this day, like, in the kind of like the preamble to a hate crime. Like, you think
Yeah.
about, like you were just saying, right? Like, at the top of this, about how for, like, the LGBTQ community, like, the acceptance that we enjoy today, while it's not perfect,
Right.
right, is still way different than it was just
Way.
30 years ago or
Yeah.
even 20 years ago, right?
Yeah. Totally.
And, like, I don't know, I think a lot, like, in the 90s, right, there was, Matthew Shepard, who was murdered for being gay,
Mhm.
and, the F word was used in that context too, and so many countless other folks who were, I mean, like, can also, speaking of pandemics, right, like, during the '80s and the AIDS crisis,
Right.
like, it was also used, like, tremendously because AIDS was known as, like, the gay disease, right?
Right.
And so I think keeping in mind that history and what that means and how it's been used in violent ways, and has that really rich discriminatory history, it's like, hey, it's not just a word,
Yeah.
and
It's definitely not just a
yeah,
word, but a lot of people, just like they marginalize anything,
yeah,
they're not anti-bigoted, or they're not anti-racist.
yeah,
They're so layered in their ways. Some of it's generational, and some of it is just ignorance or denial, right?
yeah.
Like, there's different reasons for that. So do you have any aspirations to go back? So you had some negative experiences as a pro too, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah, I
Unfortunately.
encountered a lot of, uh homophobia and, like, xenophobia and racism when I was playing, and, a lot of that kind of coincided with, the 2016 election,
Of course.
where, for the past, what, 4 or 5 years, there has been kind of more emboldened nature of saying, like, all of the shitty thoughts that people may be harboring in secret, and that was really hard because, a golf of course you're gonna see that on a golf course. It's like the kind of like a unfortunately, like, the country club brand is that more conservative leaning,
Yeah.
more white, more exclusive nature,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I started kind of experiencing that a lot. I think I would overhear people that I knew and who knew me and my family really well saying xenophobic things, in response to like the Muslim ban or like Islamophobia. And while my family isn't Muslim, we are still like brown folks, right?
Right.
And I like to say, and we're no different. Like, I don't know, like I don't mean to make that distinction to separate myself. It's more of to just say that like when somebody's being racist, they're not necessarily thinking about the nuances between identity. It's just kind of like, oh, you're brown or you're black. And so
Right.
we're just going to be essentially, you're just not white. And so when I was overhearing things like that, it was just like, oh, like my some of my aunts and uncles, like people close to my family are Muslim, right? Like I'm worried about them if they're going back to India
Mhm.
and trying to come back to the States, even if they're citizens, right?
Mhm.
Like it was the same thing after 9/11, right? Like any brown person, we were all just like,
Right. Yeah.
help.
Right.
Um, and so that was really hard when I started to hear people who knew me and who knew my family saying things like that.
Right.
Um, and like anti-immigrant stuff. And I was like, my
Oh,
parents are immigrants. And then there was also the stuff that really, really hurt was when Caitlyn Jenner had come out.
right.
Can't remember like the exact year, but it was very
Mhm.
close to Caitlyn Jenner coming out.
Mhm.
And I the folks that I was, like, playing golf with, grew up knowing Caitlyn and her Olympic career, and so them kind of, like, adjusting and processing Caitlyn's coming out, right, was a process, which I understand, and that doesn't give you license to be transphobic, and it's
Right.
like, sure, Caitlyn Jenner is a imperfect person to say the least. However, that's not an excuse to like, be transphobic or be homophobic. And folks would be doing that. They would be questioning like her gender identity. They would be like, why, kind of saying misogynistic things of like, um, you know, she is kind of like messing with masculinity in a way, or like people not understanding that uh, just people not understanding in a very transphobic way is kind of like the best way to put it, like almost like they were insulted by Caitlyn kind of being her true self, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I've talked about this a lot with the Black Lives Matter movement, and isn't it also speaking to the arrogance of people that are different, because you think you know better than these people that are
Yeah,
going through it or identifying this
yeah,
way. How are you going to tell a
yeah,
black person if they're scared, even if there are more opportunities for blacks? How are you going to tell someone who's part of the LGBTQ community better things that they feel and know about what they're involved with, feeling, going through, and you're acting like what you're saying is more important or you know better than them? Why don't you just listen to what they're saying and they'll tell you how it is. They're not doing this for like, well, maybe some people are. They're not doing this for attention. This is who they
yeah,
are. It's so
yeah,
mind-boggling, the arrogance on on this same kind of level as, people will say, "Oh, they're just making this up." Black people are, or whatever in this same space that you're talking
yeah,
about. It's
yeah.
mind-blowing.
No, it's exactly that. It's kind of like people being so uncomfortable with
Yeah, that's what it is.
someone embracing their identity and that not being what a person expected, right? And being like, no, 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 you're wrong. Like you're wrong. This is wrong.
Yeah.
And not being willing to, yeah, like just not wanting to listen and thinking that they know best. And like when you look at how that happens, right, it's like very misogynistic. It's
Yeah.
very much tied to white supremacy of like this need to control and need to like make sure that everything is understandable and like makes sense in this very narrow way.
Well, I think
Um,
I think there's a lot of people that are on the extreme, just like we're on the extreme, right? Like
yeah,
think about how it would be for us to go over to the racist side, or the
Yeah.
misogynistic side. It's probably impossible. So
Yeah.
you're gonna have some people on the impossible side over there, and our goal, we're like-minded, I think, and the people in the gray area, if you will. I think those are the people that we got to try and target and help with policy changes and things like that, and try and see if they'll come over to your side and be more like-minded and understand you better, right? Because isn't that, I always heard that, especially in grad school, like, don't you want to seek a greater understanding? That's what
Yeah.
diversity is, just to have a greater understanding of the people around you and the world around you, because that's empowering, that's exciting, that's interesting, you
Yeah.
know. And anything less than
Yeah.
that, it's like I don't get it. I get it, but I don't get it. you know?
Yeah, no, totally. And I mean, like, I think that, yeah, it is, you know, I don't know. I think that people can be changed.
Yeah.
Like, I think that, for me growing up, like, I always think about this, and kind of Trump's election makes a lot of sense to me because what he was promising large swaths of America was like representation, like people feeling like they were finally going to be heard. And like he was incredibly manipulative and a horrible person and completely fascist and every horrible thing ever,
Among other things.
among other things. And at the same time, right, like for a really long time, there are large swaths of like, think of the folks who voted for him. It's like the rural parts of America, more kind of like rural, white, working class folks who didn't feel like they were represented. And it's like, yeah, like as, like a queer woman of color, it's like I know the pain of not feeling represented. It's like I understand that.
Mm.
And so I think that like I don't know. I'm saying that because not to excuse
No, but
anything,
if you
but
want
like
them to
that,
understand us, then we have to sort of understand in some
yeah,
level what they're feeling.
yeah. And I
Yeah,
think that like if there is
great point.
some sort of like, I think there's a way. It's hard, right? Because there are obviously like absolutely not Nazis. Like there are
Right.
hard lines, there are boundaries,
Totally.
and it makes me wonder. It's like how do we have these conversations where there is this kind of somehow somewhere a shared understanding of like that specific pain of not feeling represented, and how do we kind of move forward in a way where that kind of that journey or that quest for representation isn't an either or situation. It isn't either I'm represented or you're represented. There's
Yeah.
kind of like we can all like defeating the scarcity mindset. Like there's
Hmm.
an enough for all of us, and how do we kind of get to that point? Because I think if we're just continually operating out of scarcity mindset,
Yeah.
right? Like then you're going to have oppression. You're going to have like this kind of competition of like I'm better or I'm worse or this person is worse
Well,
and
psychologically, also, people are set in their ways and they don't seek evolution.
yeah,
They're comfortable with where they are, also. So I think that plays a part in a lot of people's
yeah.
mindsets as well. So do you have any interests and aspirations to get back on the tour once you're done with law school?
Yeah. I mean like I
Yeah.
I would
Look,
love
I've always
to.
wanted to be a caddy. So if you're a Tory for any event, like, and something happens to your
Yes.
normal caddy, like, I am so down for real.
Oh, I cannot tell you how much I have been dreaming about playing Tori.
Oh,
I don't know. Okay,
you were in
I'm
San
gonna
Diego,
like
never played Tory?
no, I did. I played
Oh,
it all
okay,
the
okay,
time. I
okay.
was tilting my screen up because I have
Oh,
like a
sick.
farmer's insurance flag up there
Nice. That's
that
awesome.
it was like 2019 when Tiger played and I got it signed
That's
by
so cool.
Tiger and I was
Wow.
like, "Holy shit."
I was at the
Um,
08 Open when he won. I was
oh,
there.
you
Yeah, I was there on the first day, and I told the person that I was with, true story. I was like, if Tiger misses on this first hole, he usually hooks it about 280 to the left. I'm like, that's where we're going. And swear to God, he hit it within 5 feet of me. It was so crazy. And
wait,
the hush
fr
that came over the crowd, it was like almost a surreal spiritual experience. I was like, this is crazy. He was pissed, right? Of course he was pissed.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
he just
Is it
punched it
North
out.
Course? North
It
Course or
was north.
South
It
Course?
was north. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
He played North Course. Yeah. And I
Oh,
was just like, "Oh my god, he's so livid." He punched it out. He was like, "F this, I don't." Yeah, he's like, he didn't even like. He just looked and punched it out 50 yards and got whatever. I don't even remember what if he bogeyed the hole or whatever, but he probably bogeyed it because he always starts slowly. But it was a lot of
yeah.
fun. Yeah, I love
I
Tori.
was I was there too,
Really,
in
in '08?
2008, yeah,
Wow,
in
that's sick,
2008. Yeah, we had those moments where it was like, he was limping on what was it? His, like,
right?
broken ankle, and
No, he had a torn
I just rem
ACL.
so insane. I was like,
Crazy. What's the timeline for you to so people that don't understand Q school, man, it's a grind, right? You got to get to the first through the
yeah,
first two levels, the first two stages, and you get to the third stage, and then 6 days, right? It's 6 straight
yeah.
days.
Unfortunately, because of, like, all of the discrimination I was enduring, it
Ugh,
took its toll on me, and I had, like, a really, really bad mental breakdown,
oh,
and so I was, like, trying to push through it, and, like, golf is such a mental sport, and it's,
yeah,
like, it was this kind of conflict where I was like, "Okay, I know I need some shit to work out, and I need to find therapy that I wouldn't find for a little longer than it took."
yeah,
Um, and then I was also just like, "No, I just gotta go play, like, I just gotta play," but it wasn't clicking, and I was just, like,
mhm,
stuck, like, I hit this
oh,
wall, and it was so
yeah,
frustrating, and like once I started going to therapy and started realizing kind of what was, like processing and figuring out what was going on and realizing that like a lot of that had to do with, you know, feeling unsafe on the golf course and feeling unsafe and like I didn't belong in this place that had given me a lot of safety for like so many years of my life and where I was like, no, I do belong here. Like I can show you, I have the scorecards to show you. Why do I
yeah,
like, why are you making me feel like I'm so othered and I have to prove that I'm allowed here?
mm.
And so it really, really took its toll on me. And so I was like, I like what was best was to take a step back and kind of like, sort myself out, process, heal.
Which
And
takes time, right? It's
it
not it's
takes
not an
time,
overnight
yeah.
thing. Yeah, it's just frustrating
As
'cause
much as I I wish it was an
yeah,
overnight
because
thing,
in
right?
golf, like if you don't turn it around in a hurry, one hole and you're done for the day.
Yeah,
Right? So you sort of
exactly.
have that mentality, you better turn this thing around in a hurry. You better
Yeah,
right this ship. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
I
good for you. Yeah.
kind of like through that whole process, I was just, I realized more and more, it's like there needs to be more visibility in the sport. And what was really kind of hurting was that we weren't as a sport having conversations about inclusivity. At that
Mhm.
point, it was just like, okay, we have Tiger, and it almost felt like the entire golf world was like, "Aha, we've solved racism. We have Tiger."
Or
Um,
Obama for that
or
matter,
Obama,
right?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but there haven't been many conversations about gender equality in golf or equal pay. And like the LPGA and PGA Tour pay like discrepancy is still huge, right?
It's huge.
Um,
Not for the
and
majors, there's a little bit of a
it's
yeah,
yeah, it's getting a little bit better,
yeah.
but it's still like, come on,
Huge
we're
disparity. Yeah,
playing essentially the same game and like most of
totally.
the same courses. But yeah, there weren't those conversations. There was almost like a color blindness approach to just racial identity. And then let alone LGBTQ athletes, there wasn't that visibility, right? Like it was only a couple years ago that Tad Fujikawa, who I
Mhm.
adore, he went to high school with one of my teammates, and we're like,
Wow.
wait a second,
That's
yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I love him. But yeah, it was only a few years ago that he came out and was like the
Mhm.
first professional male golfer to come out.
Mhm.
And then what, like a year or two ago, Mel Reed came out and kind of like more publicly in recent history was out on the LPGA tour. And then like Molly Gallatin, who works at the PGA of America, is out and has like this adorable baby with her partner.
Mhm.
But this has only happened. This visibility has only happened what in like the past 2 or 3 years, and it wasn't present when I was playing, and I could
Mhm.
feel like it. I felt that
Yeah,
silence
yeah, yeah.
because
Yep,
I saw it like like Megan Rapinoe, right? Like I saw it in all of these
totally.
other sports, and I was like, what about golf? Like, why
Mhm.
isn't it happening here? And, realizing how much I was craving just to feel like I was like, I know I can be a queer athlete, but I don't know if I can be a queer golfer because I'm not seeing that. We're not having these conversations. And
Well,
so
there's a
I
lack of progression, right? From Colin
yeah,
to you to Bruce Maxwell, who we've had on, who was the first baseball
yeah,
player, to Neil. But that internal conflict has got to be excruciating when
yeah,
when you don't feel like somebody has your back, or an organization as big as the LPGA doesn't, have your back, or
yeah,
not necessarily having your back, but they're just not advocating, or making it a point
yeah,
to make it a priority to support, the movement that had been going on for 2 decades already at this point
yeah.
when you were in that space.
It's like that proactive, like, there's that
Totally.
line between, like, just ex like, I don't know, it's just kind of, like, passively supporting and, like, proactively doing it, and I think, especially around, the racial justice conversations that we've been having over the
Mm,
past year, right? You see that a lot in, like, it's not just enough to be, like, not racist, we
right.
have to be anti-racist,
Mhm.
and I think that you can say the same for all like all social justice
Totally.
movements.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I was just so frustrated with that and me being very competitive. I mean, I played golf professionally, and very, very stubborn. I was like, no, like this hurts so much, but like, what can I do to turn this into something proactive? Like, I know I'm still healing, so I know I'm not ready to go out on the course just yet.
Mm.
And I know that there has to be something I can do. And so I ended up becoming more involved with Athlete Ally, who I absolutely love. And they have meant a great deal to me throughout my career because like their whole thing is about visibility of queer athletes and advocating for queer athletes.
So cool. Yeah.
And so I got to work with them and I'm one of their ambassadors now and
Awesome.
I absolutely love everybody there and it's
Mm.
been like one of the, it's kind of like that silver lining, right? Like if there was a silver lining to any of that pain, it was
Yeah.
having the opportunity to work with like Athlete Ally and to
Mm.
advocate for LGBTQ inclusion and it's all of that that like landed me in law school because
That's awesome.
yeah, it's like I see how much and I know firsthand how much sports can change your life. Like golf has changed my life and continues to change my life in so many ways. For
Yeah.
good and for bad, like all of those things. And I
Well,
everybody should have that opportunity.
totally, but and when you follow your compass, right? When you're younger, you don't think this way, right? When you're younger,
Yeah.
you're conflicted, like we said, and you have a love for lots of things, but in order for you to feel whole, right, and live this holistic life that you want to live, you can't just have one thing working for you and the other things aren't working. Like
Yeah.
it'll pull you, it'll tug at you, and you'll just feel like you're not going to be able to reach your full potential, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, for me it was just kind of like I this sport has given me so much. Yes, it has also taken so much away from me. And how do we make that so it doesn't keep happening like that? How do
Mhm,
we change the culture? And I was like, yeah, like I don't have a huge platform like, Danielle Kang or Michelle Wie, right?
mhm.
And I know that even without a huge platform, there's still stuff that like I just want to be involved with policy. Like I want to be a part of the conversation and start having those conversations.
Well, there's
Um,
no doubt if
so
you get
yeah.
back on the tour that you will have a different platform, whether it's better or worse. No,
Yeah.
it's true. Like
Yeah.
people listen to people when they have certain platforms and they're in certain
Yeah.
spaces. I mean, I've been going on Clubhouse for the last month, and I can't even believe who's going on Clubhouse. And Sue Bird's going into those spaces, and Elon Musk, and you can say what you want about him, but I'm just saying, like you and people will listen to you. Like you have a
Yeah.
whole different audience when it comes to things like that. Not that that's the reason you should do it, but
Yeah.
if it does cross paths with what your journey is supposed to be, and you follow your compass, and that's where it leads you, uh,
Yeah.
because you've done the work, and that's really important for people out there. That no matter what they're going through, that if something is making them feel stuck, like you talked about, that they stop no matter what those consequences are in that moment, and they start doing the work internally, because it will lead them, even though it feels like one step backwards, it's going to lead them two steps forward down the road. Right. And that's what's
Yeah.
happened to you. You maybe felt like you took a step back, but you're two steps forward now. And now you feel like not necessarily relieved, but you're just like, it's just a whole different vibration that you have if you do go back on the tour now.
Yeah, and I mean, there's still a lot that I'm working through kind of like the negative experiences
I
and
hope
the
they fire the
shame.
coach at Claremont McKenna for the record.
I I hope I don't get sued for saying, but yes, I agree. Yeah,
That's just, I mean, that's just ridiculous
yeah,
that should happen at any level, right? But
yeah. No, and it happens so much more than like
that's crazy.
it. Yeah,
Why? How are you gonna get the most out? Like I've yelled, right? I've been coach for 29
yeah,
years. I've yelled and I said something really dumb one time to one of my players, and I almost like I just felt like the world was ending. Like and all I said was, why is she being so stupid or something to that point? Like, and it wasn't horrendous, right? And some people would just brush it off, like, oh, coach is pissed. But to her, it meant the world that she was giving everything she had to put these intangibles in place to help us be a more cohesive team. And I just called her stupid with only one fan in the gym. And it devastated her. And
yeah,
I talk to her now as much as any of my former athletes. I told her I made a huge mistake. And so, we do make mistakes, like you said,
yeah,
but it is important. It is important that you learn from those mistakes and evolve,
yeah.
otherwise, history will repeat itself, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, I think it's like I have a lot of regrets and kind of like the one thing that it feels like it haunts me is like I had status on the Symetra tour and I didn't get to play because I had to take a step back. Um, and there's a part of me, a huge part of me, bigger than I think I always want to admit, but that feels like a lot of shame and guilt that I like quit. It's like I'm like I gave up. Like I'm not a person that gives up, and I know that like I'm still fighting and involved in a way that fits who I am and fits the journey that I am on. But like it still sucks. Like that's my dream. Like my dream was to play and make it on the LPGA tour and I was close.
Well, yeah, but hold on, time out. First of all, you just push the pause button. Golf is not like other sports; it doesn't have a shelf life.
Yeah, that's true.
So you could be playing for the next 20 years, and you're going to look back, I think, and just say, look, now, right? At least from this standpoint, you could not possibly play your most complete golf or your best golf in terms of longevity
Hmm.
if you hadn't pushed the pause button for a second. I remember my therapist told me when I went to therapy about 20 years ago when I had about level 10 anxiety. He would always say, as long as you're working towards getting to the place where you want to be at some point, that's what's most important. Even if during that process it's yucky,
Yeah.
and so there's yuckiness. Like it just takes time. My mom's a psychotherapist for over 40 years. I hear her conversations constantly in the house because everything's in the house now, right? You have to stay home.
Yeah.
She's doing her practice from the house, and it's yucky. It takes time. So I hope that you work through that because
Yeah.
I think you should be applauded for that. I think you should applaud yourself for that. I don't think you should beat yourself up, even if it's 1%. It's understandable to think that way, but there's
Yeah.
no possible way that you down the road, I hope, see yourself as a quitter. It's you're being introspective and wanting to grow and evolve and have depth and richness to your life instead of quitting, because
Yeah.
it's two narratives, and it's up to you how you want to choose the narrative.
I don't know if you know. I don't know if I knew how much I needed to hear that. That was
No.
like really kind and thank you for saying all of it's like you said, it's been yucky, I guess is like the best way to describe the whole process. And
Yeah.
I'm just really grateful. I mean, like the biggest thing that matters to me in this moment right now is fighting for a sports world where anybody who wants the opportunity to play can feel like they can play and feels accepted and celebrated. And, like That's the reason why I went to law school, to work on, to understand how this country and this framework works, to fight for more inclusive policies, for
Mhm.
laws that protect queer folks, especially like queer folks of color, and you know, getting to do that with through advocacy with Athlete Ally has been amazing, because I think, like, law isn't the be all end all to making change. Like, it's
Totally.
working with people, it's community organizing, and
Mhm.
getting to kind of, meet like brilliant athletes like Andrea Yearwood and Terry Miller, and like all of these folks who are like fucking crushing it, but are
Yeah.
getting, like, kind of fighting this uphill battle. It's like, just get to know a person, right? Like,
Right.
um, just like, we just want to play the game. Like, I think
Yeah.
Chris Mosier says this all the time, right? Just let trans kids play, and it's like, just let anybody play, right? Like, at the end of the my girlfriend says this all the time. She's like, humans made up sports. It's not like God gave us the rules on this. We could just change them. And I'm like,
Right.
you are right. You have a fair point there. She's not a sports person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So but I was like, yeah, you're right. It's like,
Mhm.
like, at the end of the day, I love sports, right? Like, they mean the world to me. But it's also just a game. And like, golf
Yep.
is kind of stupid. Like, if you just
Right?
boil it down, right? Like, it's pretty stupid. And so why is it? Like, it kind of, it feels so sad when you think about like the exclusion, and then that kind of exclusionary obsession that some folks have with like,
It's so stupid because the depth of what, people in those spaces could bring
yeah,
would elevate the sport, and
yeah,
their thinking is total opposite of what would actually happen if they
yeah,
supported the narrative. It's
exactly.
so dumb. It's
It's
so dumb.
so,
It's so ass backwards. It's so rigid and inflexible and just wrong.
and
You don't
it's
have to
like,
agree
grow
with
the
somebody's
game.
lifestyle. Yeah, it would grow the game from a business perspective. It's so stupid.
Yeah,
Oh man, it's crazy. We could talk forever, but
yeah.
so wait, let's get to the this or that, and I'll leave the
Okay,
last part to you.
okay,
So a little rapid fire, a little fun to finish things up.
okay.
You've been listening to an interview with Maya Reddy, professional golfer and law student at the University of Pennsylvania. We want to thank our sponsor, SportRx. You can check them out online at sportrx.com. And don't forget to enter the code DELI10 at checkout for your 10% discount. Also, a shout out to PSK Collective. You can find them online at pskcollective.com or online at Walmart. Now back to the rapid fire, very famous this or that segment of the Sports Deli with Hootie Hoot. Okay, Disney or superheroes?
That's not fair. Because Disney owns superheroes now.
Oh, you had to go legal on me, huh? Okay. That's
I
crap.
mean, um, God, superheroes.
Okay, so Spider-Man or Wonder Woman?
Hmm. Spider-Man.
Wow. 10 finger, interlocking, overlapping, or reverse overlapping?
Overlapping.
Such
I'm
a
like this.
traditionalist. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Not me. I'm 10 finger. It's just been the most comfortable. I liked reverse overlapping for a while. I
I
put left.
interlocked for a bit
Really?
because Tiger did, and then
Right.
that was not comfortable. I mean, most of my early golf career was like, Tiger did it, so I'm gonna do it.
You use a blade too?
Yeah,
Still?
yeah.
Damn, you must have amazing hand-eye coordination. Why don't you give yourself more forgiveness? It wouldn't work at this point to transition to a cavity back club?
No, I actually had cavity backs for a while, and
Wow.
like, I was not playing well with them. And
Wow.
one of my friends, Todd Fitzpatrick, who's like the shit. I love him. He works for Callaway now, but I met him and he was like, dude, I don't think your clubs are fit correctly, even though they were like fit for me. And so he like fit me and like
Wow.
worked through it and found the right clubs for me. And it was blades. I play with Callaway Apex Pros.
Wow.
and, like, I love them. Like, they changed my entire like,
Wow.
moving from the cavity back to the blades, like, completely changed my
That's
game.
so rare. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What's the most ridiculous rule in golf?
Mm. Oh, standing in somebody's line. Yeah, I think it
On
because
the
it's like
fairway?
no, on the green,
On
like,
the
if you're
green,
in
okay.
somebody's, like, directly even if you're on the opposite side of the
On the
hole.
opposite side.
Yeah, I
Even
think
and
this might
behind
have
also?
not it's like if you're in front of the
In front of
person,
them, okay.
and but yeah, like, I only remember this because I got in one of my very first golf tournaments as a junior golfer, I got a two-stroke penalty for accidentally doing that, and so I will always remember that rule.
Wow, there you go. What part of your game needs the most work?
Short game.
What part of the short game?
Well, all of it.
All of it, okay.
All of it.
Are you good at in the beach?
Better than I was.
Oh, that's cool.
I've learned how to relax. Also, it's
Yeah.
probably all those years I lived in San Diego, I've just become part of the beach.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. We lost Kobe, John Lewis, Ruth Bader Ginsburg this year. What did she mean to you?
Oh, I mean, a lot. She actually there so she taught at Rutgers Law, which is, like, kind of really close by to Penn, Philly.
Hmm.
But I remember kind of the law journal that I'm a part of in our stacks, like the secret stacks, there
Hmm.
are old, exams that she gave, from this class of, like,
Wow,
conflict of law. So, like, you could go like, my friend and I went, and we just, like, read her old exams, and which was just wild.
that's crazy.
She's, like I don't know, she's amazing. She's a
Yeah.
trailblazer. There's so many great things that you can say about her, and I think, one story that stands out a lot, and it's been getting kind of more, um, like, visibility, I would say, is in one of her I think it was Reed v. Reed was the case on gender discrimination, but she in her Ruth Bader Ginsburg's brief to the Supreme Court, she credited this other lawyer, this queer trans black lawyer, Polly Murray, in her brief because Polly Murray, it she they sorry, Polly was very actively trying to seek gender affirmation surgery and procedures,
Mm.
um, but they were like this one of the pioneering like backbones to including gender within the Civil Rights Act, within,
Mm.
like
Title
all of
nine.
the not I don't think title I do not know as much as I probably should know about
My
Polly.
bad.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on polyamory, but they really, really brilliant. Like
Mm.
they fought for gender inclusion. They were queer. They were
Wow.
radical. They worked with Eleanor Roosevelt, I believe it was, like a shit ton to just be like,
Wow.
yo, come on, like you've got to include women in this. You've got to include
Right.
like talk to your husband, right?
Pauli Murray influenced not just Eleanor Roosevelt, but Martin Luther King as well, right? Because of the Civil Rights Act and obviously Ruth Bader Ginsburg as well, and wanting to include the word sex. And, a lot of civil rights activists feared that its inclusion would shift the focus away from the rights of black Americans and into the space of white women. But because Murray was such a brilliant legal strategist, um, she, explained why sex was an integral part to the goal of the bill.
It's a really special story to hear about
Mm.
how RBG, like at the precipice, who was also a pioneer in her own right, still credited this other, like this queer trans black lawyer, the first in so many ways. Instead of, like the law is a rat race, right? Like if you have an
Totally.
idea, most people are just gonna be like, that was my idea. But like to see somebody just be so collaborative in that way, it just I don't know, it feels really special. But
Yeah.
yeah, she's a badass. Like holy
Total
shit.
badass.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm sure there's a lot of stories about her we could talk about. Justin Bieber or Maroon 5?
Justin Bieber.
Katy Perry or
Well,
Taylor Swift?
Taylor Swift.
Favorite men's golfer to watch besides Tiger?
Rory. He has a good
Interesting.
butt. He
Have you
has a
met
good
him?
butt.
He's got a good butt, yeah. But you haven't met him?
No, I've seen him play a bunch at Torrey for like the farmers, but I've not met him. He has a
Yeah.
very to objectify him, he has a good butt.
Yes. That's okay. You can objectify him. He takes a really long time to swing, though. Really
Yeah,
annoying.
that's true. That's true.
Not as long as he used to, but okay. Netflix, Hulu, or Amazon Prime?
Okay, that's not fair for all of them,
Can't
and I
say
love them all. I'm gonna say Hulu just because I've been binge watching Law and Order SVU.
I have to say that Damian Lillard's commercial is freaking hilarious. Have you seen that commercial with him? Oh, you
No.
got to see it. He's rapping, and then he won't say certain things for the commercial, and then they hold up a briefcase of like $1 million and basically say, "Hey, will you say what we want you to say now?" So then he raps the song about
That's
about Hulu.
amazing.
Oh, you
That's
got to look it up. It's
amazing.
freaking hilarious.
Okay, I have to,
I
yeah.
have to look it up. Yeah. Uh, are you kind to, well, I already know the answer to this. Are you kind to yourself when you hit a shot fat, or are you animated and visibly pissed off?
I'm probably pissed.
Yeah.
Probably pissed.
Annika Sorenstam, Siri Pak, Julie Inkster, Nancy Lopez, or Michelle Wee?
Oh, so I that's hard. Michelle Wee, I fucking love Michelle Wee.
Yeah,
Annika feels complicated because she's like, an icon. And also she accepted the Medal of Freedom from Trump
I
when he
saw
was
that.
doing it
I was like,
like
wow, really?
shadily.
Yeah, she did. And she tried to separate it too, but I wasn't buying it.
Yeah, I was
Really
like,
weird.
oh. But she is coming back. She's playing her first tournament
Crazy.
like in a week or so since she retired.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
I mean, like,
Good for the sport,
I'm
I guess.
still, yeah, like I'm
Yeah,
gonna watch. Like,
yeah.
but yeah, Michelle Wee's fucking
Yeah,
amazing.
pretty good announcer too. I listened to her. I
Yes.
was like, wow. I didn't realize who it was
Yeah.
at first. I was like, wow, that must be a seasoned vet. I'm like, oh, that's Michelle Wee. Holy moly.
Michelle. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's awesome.
totally. Current golfers: Lexi Thompson, Hee Young Park, Danielle Kang, or sisters Jessica or Nelly Corda.
Oh, I mean, Jessica just won. Like,
Yeah,
really, like, I'm gonna go with Jessica Corda because like that was like an amazing tournament. That was like a hell of a round of golf.
totally. I agree. All right, candy or popcorn when watching a movie?
Candy.
Wow, really? Interesting.
Yeah,
What
Sour
candy?
Patch Kids. Sour
Oh,
Patch
there you
Kids.
go. Of course.
Yeah.
Well, if John was here, he would tell you a story about popcorn. So people in New York and Boston and other places, you can't go to the movies, but they're selling popcorn at the movies, and people are lined up around the building just to buy the popcorn. Swear to God.
Wait, I would do that. That's
Right.
I would do that.
Isn't that hilarious though? Like
Yeah.
$20 for a bucket, and people they don't care.
Yep.
Okay, so you're down a stroke on the 18th hole. Okay,
Okay.
par five. So you hit a great drive. And so you have 200 yards to clear the water to make it onto the green for a two putt birdie to send it to a playoff, or a one putt for the win, or do you lay up and try and get up and down to send it to a playoff?
Oh, it would go in. Yeah, 200 yards is not like that's a.
Seven wood? What are you using?
It'd be like my 4 hybrid.
Four hybrid. Okay.
Yeah, and like easily get over. And like I can control that pretty well with these new shafts that I have.
Mm,
So I think I'm pretty confident I could at least at minimum have a 2 putt.
wow. Somebody just four putted on tour. Did you see that?
No, wait, what?
Yeah, somebody just four putted from like 10 feet away yesterday. It was crazy. He was tied for the lead. Nate Lashley at Pebble Beach, and he he was visibly upset to say the least.
Oh
It was
no.
crazy. Yeah, and he dropped to 15th place just like that on one hole. It was insane.
Oh,
Skateboarding or weightlifting? I think I already know the answer to this one.
oh, well, weightlifting right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, I knew that. What's your favorite putter?
I have a Bettinardi putter right now. And I really, with like one of the fat golf pride grips.
Wow, really?
Um, Not super fat. It's kind of
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
medium size, but
Cool.
yeah, I love it because I get really handsy when I
Mm.
putt. So it like the weight of it,
Hmm.
like I like the blade. And then like, the fat grip makes you less tense.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like fatter grips too for the putter. That's cool. I putt left-handed though. I play righty
Oh,
and I putt lefty. I don't know why. I just it had to do with my dominant eye or something. And I started
that's
putting way
cool.
better. Yeah.
I just got one of those like putting tracks, like roll up things in my apartment. Right. So I was like, I'm gonna
Pandemic.
listen. Yeah, pandemic. But yeah, so I need to get on that. I'm like, if there's anything I can get better at putting.
Totally. Hey, absolutely. Put that little cup on the ground. Let's go.
Yep.
Let's see. Gap wedge or lob wedge?
Mm, I like I like my 60-degree a lot, so my lob
Mm.
wedge is my favorite one.
What's the furthest distance you're hitting that club?
Um, like about 80.
80, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
80 yards.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate. Chocolate, yeah.
It's interesting because vanilla you can put more things on.
Yeah, but chocolate is just
Chocolate's chocolate.
chocolate's chocolate.
Draw or a cut
Draw.
for every shot?
Yeah. I have a
So
natural draw. I play with a closed club face, which everybody for my entire life has been trying to get me out of, and I'm like, this is just who I am.
so do I,
Um,
for the record. Yeah. So but what if
Closed
you
club face unite.
yeah, so what if you have a lot of dog legs to the right? How do you handle that?
Oh, I can play a fade if I want
You just
to.
prefer it. I gotcha.
It's
Okay.
just that it's like my natural shot shape is a
Yeah,
draw,
yeah.
so I just prefer that.
That's cool. Okay. 7-foot putt to win the US Open or a 40-foot two putt to win the US Open?
7 foot putt.
Okay. Favorite golf ball?
Um, Playing with Callaway Chrome Softs right now, I think.
Nice.
That and like the
More spin?
Bridgestones. Um, Honestly, I
Bridgestone's
think I
not
just
more spin, right? Bridgestone's less spin, isn't it?
honestly, I have not played on a golf course in like truly so long. I cannot remember what golf balls do. Like it
You
has
plead the
been
fifth.
I plead the fifth. But I like a softer ball because I like the feel on impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's cool. Uh, okay. Well, the stage is yours. What can people do to educate themselves? To destigmatize and demystify. The LGBTQ community or the golf community. We've come a long ways. We got a long ways to go.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's so many folks doing really great things in like the athletics world. Athlete Ally is
Hmm.
great. And I think like, following the work that big queer athletes do, like, Megan Rapinoe, you have like the
Totally.
Gus Kenworthys. Um,
Power
and then I
couple.
also think that just like in, general, right? Like if you want to know more about like the queer community, I think just like watching and listening to queer stories. Like there's a lot of great like movies and television shows out there that aren't going to describe the entirety of the queer experience, but it's a window into some of it.
Yeah. Like what?
And I mean, love Simon because I love Jennifer Garner.
Mhm.
So that's a great one.
Makes two of us.
She's a literally have been watching Alias again because I'm
Oh
like, I
God, I
need
love
more
that
J.
show.
It's
Totally.
so good. It's so good. Such a good show.
Really is.
But yeah, no, I mean, there's so you like I think Modern Family did a lot. Like representation matters, right? And I think
Totally.
Modern Family did a lot in that realm, kind of like around that 2000 mid 2000s era.
Hmm.
Um, why am I blanking on every gay show right now? I just like watch all of the gay shows and then now I can't think of anything. Um, wow, this is bad. I just watched Titanic this weekend, so it's like all I can think about is Titanic. Um, but yeah, I would say seek out gay stories, queer stories. There, if you're into documentaries, there's this incredible documentary on Netflix called Disclosure that looks at representation of trans characters, trans folks within media, and it's brilliant. It's really wonderful. If you want, right now, kind of like the biggest issue in athletics is trans inclusion, and trans inclusion implicates like misogyny, homophobia, and all of these things. It literally just boils down to the policing of athletes' bodies because they look different or they
Mm.
perceived as different.
There's
And I
Betty. I just looked it up. There's Betty. I don't know if you heard of that on HBO. Billions. There's The Bisexual on Hulu.
Oh wait, the bisexual is so good. Watch
Is it?
that.
Okay, I'll have to
Yes,
check that out.
with oh my God, it's so good. Desiree
Crazy.
Akban.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, she's
I'll definitely have to check that out.
a Iranian American bisexual, and she's fucking hilarious. She's great. She's amazing. I love her so much.
Yeah, if you just look up people that are listening, if you look up on rollingstone.com, they have an article about some of the best ones to watch. Dear White People,
I'm
Elite,
I'm really
Empire.
doing a poor job of,
It's all good. You got
my
writer's block. You got
my
golfer's block.
it's like I was a film major and I did write a thesis on this and now I've forgotten everything about it.
Well, we're in the Google era, so people can look it up if they're really
Yeah.
interested in educating themselves for sure.
But yeah, if like I think that trans issues in athletics is like it's really, really important and we should all care about it.
Totally.
And you folks to follow, Chris Mosier, who's phenomenal. And he's on Instagram always posting about kind of what's going on. There's, I believe, at least 20 bills in state legislatures right now looking to exclude trans kids from sports. And that's
Terrible.
all, it's all like
It's
if
just
somebody
ridiculous.
questions whether a kid looks like a woman, then they can subject a lot of these bills are saying that they can subject these kids to invasive genital and chromosomal exams, right? And these are
Crazy.
kids.
Kids.
And it's like,
And these are
you
Republicans
know,
and Democrats. It's not just one or the other, too. It's
which
both.
is,
On one of the
yeah,
bills,
and
it's a Republican
hard.
and a Democrat. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's tough because it's like, yeah, like what do you think of when we're thinking about these standards of who looks like a woman, right? It is off of this Eurocentric white standard.
Totally.
And
Yep.
so you think about like how Serena has been kind of like, you know, lambasted, villainized for like all of her career for just how she looks as being like more masculine or whatever. And take that and apply it to kids, right? Like it's horrible when it's
Horrible.
happening to Serena. And it's horrible when it happens to kids and they're subjected to invasive things. So trans issues in athletics is like really, really important and something that we should all be caring about. And so follow Chris Mosier. I know Chase Strangio is doing a lot of work with ACLU on that, Athlete Ally as well. But yeah, I think if you know of a bill in your state, get involved, call your reps. And you don't even have to just go that far. I know like calling your reps is like a lot. It feels like a lot, but I think that the biggest thing that folks can do is talk about it and add visibility
Totally.
and care. But
Well,
yeah,
talk to people that are different than you that,
yeah,
know more about this kind of thing because that's what makes you uncomfortable. Not too
oh,
uncomfortable, but
yeah.
enough to educate you a little bit.
And I was gonna say, there's a documentary coming out soon called "Changing the Game." That follows the lives of four trans athletes in high school, and it's really, really, really fantastic.
Cool.
Mac Beggs, Andrea Yearwood, and I am forgetting Sarah, and I cannot remember her last name. She is Sarah Rose Trans on Instagram, and she's fucking phenomenal.
That's cool.
Um, but yeah, it's a really, really incredible kind of like, like looking at these folks' stories. Yeah.
Yeah. The other one I thought of was Orange is the New Black. They had
Oh,
some,
yes.
yeah.
That went off the rails towards the end of that show, though. First season, great. And then it was just like, what's happening here?
Oz is the other one. I remember watching Oz for a long time. Maybe it was a little bit before you started maybe watching shows on HBO, but Oz was like crazy and,
Oh,
talking about
yeah.
that space. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it was intense. Oh man, it was crazy. So, all right. Well, we appreciate you. You've
Yeah,
educated us, and sharing space with you was, like I told you, when I read that article, I was like, I really want to talk to her and put it out into the universe. That
yeah,
people have a better understanding of what's going on, and golf doesn't get the notoriety that basketball does, right? We've had a lot of
yeah,
WNBA news that changed the whole state of Georgia, and the NBA players speak out, and
yeah,
football's done things, but really tennis and golf haven't done as much, because they're
yeah,
not mainstream
that's true.
sports, but we need that across the board. So continue on
Yeah,
that path. Remember, one step back,
I
step
will.
forwards, and
Yeah.
you're doing amazing work internally and peripherally, and they're lucky to have you there at Penn, and your partner's lucky, and whatever space you're in is just yeah, people should like love being around you, just because there's a different energy when you're around someone who's working on themselves, even if they don't come out and overtly talk about it. You can just feel their energy. So I felt it through the
Oh,
computer. I know people that are around you in person and on Zoom and everything. They just they're very lucky to have crossed paths with you. So continued
yeah.
success, and like I said, if you need a sub, I was always a
Hell
sub in
yeah.
basketball my whole life, for the exception of a year or two. So I understand being a sub. If I'm the fourth choice, I'm on the bag. Let's go. I'm ready.
No, next time I'm in San Diego, we have to go play Tori.
All right, sounds good. All right, much love.
Thank
Continued
you.
success in law
Yeah.
school and everything, and all your other endeavors, and stay in touch. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right.
I'm grateful for
Yeah, me too. For real. All right, sounds good. We'll talk to you
it.
soon.
All right, bye.
All right. Bye bye. Mad props to Maya Reddy. What an incredible interview that was, and to share space with her was such a wonderful experience. We wish her the best of luck in law school and preparing for the LPGA Tour. And until next time, for Dr. J, this is Hootie Hoot. Remember, please mask up. Black Lives Matter. Peace.